Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something special, an intellectual adventure, you might say, into the Mahāvedallasutta.
hmm
Think of it like unlocking a kind of ancient manual for the human mind. It comes from a dialogue between two really profound thinkers, Mahākoṭṭhika and Sāriputta.
A classic dialogue, yes. Very rich.
And this isn't just dry philosophy. It feels like a direct route to understanding our minds, consciousness, even liberation. We're hoping to uncover some, surprising connections and definitions that might just give you those aha moments.
Absolutely. It offers a very structured way to look at these deep concepts.
So let's dive right in where the sutta itself starts. It immediately asks this fundamental question. How does it define being unwise, dupanyo, and conversely, being wise, panyaba? Why start there, do you think?
Well, it's incredibly direct, isn't it? The Sutta says an unwise person is simply one who does not understand the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path.
Right, the core framework.
Exactly. And conversely, the wise person is the one who does understand these truths. Starting here is significant because it's not just about knowing facts.
It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. It implies a fundamental orientation to reality. Someone wise isn't just reciting lists. They grasp the nature of suffering and its end. And that understanding, well, it changes everything. It's like the ultimate map for navigating life.
That definitely sets a high bar for wisdom from the get-go. Okay, so if wisdom is about understanding these deep truths, how does the sutta then define consciousness, vinya? How is it different from just, say, raw sensation?
Consciousness, vinya, is defined as the faculty of discerning, or you could say knowing.
Knowing what specifically?
Knowing pleasant sensations, unpleasant sensations, and those neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant ones. It's the active awareness of these experiences. So sensation might be the raw data, maybe, but consciousness is the processing, the recognition that gives it that quality of being known.
Okay, so wisdom is deep understanding. Consciousness is discernment. Now, the sutta talks about their relationship pretty quickly. Are they presented as totally separate things, or are they linked? And what's the practical point of that link?
They are absolutely described as deeply intertwined. The sutta is explicit. These phenomena are conjoined, not disjoined. It says you really can't separate what one comprehends from what the other discerns.
So they work together.
Exactly. The text puts it quite beautifully. What one understands, that one discerns. What one discerns, that one understands. They operate in concert, even though they have different jobs, so to speak.
And that functional distinction.
That's the key nuance, yes. Wisdom, pañño, is something to be developed. Bhavataba. It implies cultivation, growth.
Like building a skill.
Precisely. Whereas consciousness, viññā, is to be fully understood.
Pariññā.
Think of consciousness like the raw sensory input, the data stream. You observe it, you process it, you understand it.
Ah, I see.
Wisdom, then, is like the cultivated intelligence, the algorithm maybe, that makes sense of that data. It lets you use it effectively on the spiritual path. You don't grow the data itself, you understand it, but you do grow your capacity to interpret it wisely. That really shows their different but complementary roles.
That analogy really clicks. Okay, let's bring in two more key mental factors. Feeling, Vedana, and perception, Sanya. How are those defined, and do they have the same kind of intertwined relationship?
Yes, they definitely do. Feeling, Vedana, is the faculty of experiencing the sensations pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It's the raw feel of it.
It's a subjective quality.
Exactly. And perception, Sanya, that's the faculty of perceiving or recognizing things. The Sutta uses examples like recognizing colors, blue, yellow, red, white. It's about identifying, categorizing, labeling almost. And just like wisdom and consciousness, these three, feeling, perception, and consciousness, are also described as intricately linked. The Sutta says, what one feels, one perceives, what one perceives, one discerns. They aren't working in isolation. They're deeply connected aspects of how we experience and make sense of everything.
Right, shaping our whole reality moment by moment. So if wisdom is this crucial understanding we need to develop and it's tied up with consciousness, how does one even start that process? What are the first steps the Sutta suggests for laying the groundwork for generating right view, samadhi he?
The Sutta gives two main causes for right view to arise, and they're quite practical, actually. First is the voice of others, parato goso, basically hearing the teachings from someone who already has that understanding.
Learning from a guide or teacher.
Yes. And the second is proper attention, yoniso manasikaro. This means applying wise, appropriate attention to your own experience and to what you're learning. It's not just passive listening. It's actively engaging your mind with discernment, investigating.
So, okay, you hear the teachings, you apply proper attention. What does this achieve? How does right view, once it starts to form, lead towards that liberation we talked about? Are there specific supports mentioned?
Absolutely. Right view isn't isolated. When it's supported by 5 specific factors, the sutta says it brings about both liberation of mind, chitta-vimutti, and liberation through wisdom, pañña-vimutti.
And those 5 factors are?
They are moral virtue, sila, crucial foundation, then learning, sutta continuing to take in the teachings, discussion, sakhacha, exploring these ideas with others, then tranquility, samatha, cultivating inner calm, and finally insight, vipassana, direct, penetrative seeing into reality. It's a very holistic path.
Not just thinking about it, but living it.
Precisely. And ultimately, the sutta points to a threefold purpose for wisdom itself. It's for direct knowledge, abhiññā, seeing things directly, for full understanding, pariññā, comprehending deeply, and very significantly, for relinquishment or abandoning, pāyanata, of the defilements, the mental hindrances.
So wisdom isn't just an intellectual trophy, it's a tool.
Exactly. A tool for direct knowing, deep understanding, and ultimately for freeing yourself.
Okay, that lays out the individual path clearly. Now, the sutta also talks about different modes of existence, bhava. What are these, and how do they fit into this picture of the mind?
Right. The sutta outlines 3 main types of existence. There's sensual existence, kamabhava, which is, dominated by sensory experience. Then fine material existence, rupabhava, associated with higher meditative states, less gross matter. And finally, immaterial existence, arubhabhava, even more refined, almost formless states of consciousness.
So different realms or qualities of experience.
Yes, they map out the spectrum of possible states of being within this worldview. Understanding them helps contextualize where craving and ignorance can lead.
Which brings us to the next point. What drives this cycle? What does the sutta say pushes beings into these existences again and again, this idea of rebirth, punapabha vinibalati?
The driver, according to the sutta, is fundamentally ignorance, avijja, coupled with craving, pacha. When beings are veiled by ignorance, not seeing things clearly, and bound by craving, wanting things to be a certain way, they find delight, nandi, in these various states.
That delight is the hook.
It's the fuel. That delight, born from ignorance and craving, creates momentum for continued existence, for future rebirth. Ignorance blinds us, craving pulls us, and the cycle continues.
And the way out.
The way out, the cessation of future rebirth, comes through the fading away of that ignorance, the arising of clear knowing or wisdom, and the complete stopping of craving. It's an unraveling of those conditions that bind us.
Okay, so from these vast scales of existence, the sutta then zooms right into specific meditative states, particularly the first jhana. What defines this state? What's it like? And how does one get there?
The first jhana is described as a state you reach through complete detachment from sensuality, from unskillful mental qualities. It's a step away from the usual way of being.
And it has specific characteristics.
Yes, 5 key factors arise together. Initial application of mind, vitakka, sustained application, vikara, rapture or joy, peti, pleasure, sukha. Specifically, a pleasure born from that detachment, not from sense input and one-pointedness of mind, citta-caghata. It's a state of deep focus, stability, and a kind of refined happiness.
Sounds profound. What needs to be let go of to enter it?
The sutta lists 5 qualities that are abandoned to enter the first jhana: sensual desire, ill will or aversion, sloth and torpor, mental dullness, restlessness and remorse, and finally, doubt. Letting go of these hindrances allows the mind to settle into that absorbed, clear state.
Makes sense. You clear the static to get the clear signal. Now, how do our everyday senses fit into this? The sutta talks about the 5 faculties: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body interacting with the mind. How does that work?
Right. So each of the 5 sense faculties has its own distinct field. The eye sees forms, the ear hears sounds, and so on. They don't cross over. The eye doesn't hear, the ear doesn't see.
Obvious enough.
But the mind, mano, is described as their ultimate resort. It's the mind that experiences and integrates what comes through all these separate channels. The eye sees, the ear hears, but it's the mind that puts it all together into a coherent experience of world. It's this central integrator.
The command center, in a way.
You could say that. It's where the data becomes meaningful perception.
Now, the text brings up something really subtle here: the relationship between life, heat, and consciousness. This feels like it goes beyond just, basic biology. What's the connection?
It definitely does. It points to a very deep interdependence. The sutta explains that the 5 sense faculties depend on life, ayu, Life, in turn, depends on heat, usma.
Okay, that sounds somewhat biological.
But then it adds the reciprocal link.
Hmm.
Heat also depends on life. They are mutually dependent. The Sutta uses this brilliant analogy of an oil lamp.
An oil lamp.
Yes. Just as the lamp's flame relies on its light to be manifest, and the light relies on the flame, they arise together. In the same way, life depends on heat, and heat depends on life. It shows this incredibly tight, symbiotic relationship. These aren't separate entities, but deeply interconnected forces sustaining existence.
Wow, that's a powerful image. And this interdependence, it seems, leads to one of the most fascinating, maybe even surprising points in the text, the distinction it draws between a dead person and a monk in a very deep meditative state. Why is this distinction so important?
It's crucial because it challenges our ordinary assumptions about what constitutes being alive or conscious. The Sutta describes a dead person very clearly.
Yeah.
Bodily formations have ceased, verbal formations have ceased, mental formations have ceased, life, eon, is exhausted, heat, usma, has subsided. And the sense faculties are broken down, dispersed.
Okay, complete cessation.
Complete cessation. Now contrast that with a monk who has attained the cessation of perception and feeling, Saññavide Kanirodha. For this monk, bodily, verbal, and mental formations have also ceased. So outwardly, they might appear inert. No normal thoughts, no speech, no reaction to senses.
Yeah, right.
But, and this is the critical difference, their life is not exhausted, their heat has not subsided, and their sense faculties are described as clarified, not broken down. This strongly emphasizes that this state, however profound, is not death.
It's a different kind of cessation.
Exactly. It implies a state of existence perhaps beyond ordinary consciousness. The Sutta makes a key point here. Life processes, oyusaka, are not the same thing as felt phenomena, vedana, dhamma, like feelings and perceptions. If they were identical, the monk couldn't emerge from that state of cessation. But they can emerge. This suggests a continuity of life, a potentiality, even when gross consciousness and feeling are suspended. It fundamentally reframes what being can encompass.
That is genuinely mind-bending. Okay, to round out our deep dive, let's look at the goal, the peak states. The 4 types of mind liberation, Cetuvimmutti, discussed in the Sutta. Can you walk us through these?
Certainly. The Sutta outlines 4 distinct approaches to liberation of mind. First, there's immeasurable mind liberation, appamasha. This is cultivated by pervading everywhere with boundless loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, expanding the heart infinitely. Precisely. Second is nothingness, mind liberation, akinikanya. This is reached by going beyond even infinite consciousness to enter this sphere where there is nothing, a very high, formless absorption.
Wow.
Third is emptiness mind liberation, sunyata. This comes from reflecting on the world as empty of a permanent self, empty of anything that truly belongs to a self, seeing the lack of inherent existence.
Seeing things as they are without the overlay of self.
Exactly. And fourth is signless mind liberation, animitta. This is attained by not attending to any signs, nimitta any characteristics, features, or mental objects, and focusing instead on the signless element, the unconditioned. The text even details how it arises, lasts, and how it emerges.
So 4 very distinct paths, distinct practices leading to these liberated states. Which brings us to the ultimate question the Sutta raises. Are these 4 fundamentally different in what they mean, or is there some underlying essence connecting them all? This feels like where it gets really interesting.
It really does. And the Sutta gives a brilliant, nuanced answer. From one perspective, yes, they are different in meaning and expression. Their methods are different, right? Radiating loving kindness is not the same practice as entering the sphere of nothingness or contemplating emptiness. Each has its own distinct flavor and approach.
Okay, so they are different.
But then comes the deeper insight. When these liberations become unshakable, akupa, when they are solid, irreversible, then they are all fundamentally the same in meaning, even though their expression or path might differ.
It's the same. How so?
Because at that unshakable level, they are all completely empty of lust, rago, hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. The Sutta actually calls these defilements the measure makers, the something makers, and the sign makers. They are what create the distinctions, the boundaries, the problems.
Ah, so the defilements themselves create the apparent differences.
Exactly. For an enlightened one, someone whose defilements are totally destroyed, these root causes of suffering are gone. Lust, hatred, delusion eradicated. So regardless of whether they reach that state via boundless love, nothingness, emptiness, or the signless, the end result is the same. Complete freedom from those fundamental taints. They all converge in that ultimate liberation.
What an incredible synthesis. We've journeyed through the Mahāvedallasutta from basic definitions of wisdom and consciousness through the path, existence, meditative states, right up to these ultimate liberations. It's really striking how one ancient dialogue packs in such a comprehensive, nuanced map of the mind.
It truly is a dense and profound text, a real shortcut to getting a handle on these core concepts.
It shows such a deep logic connecting everything, doesn't it? Things that might seem abstract suddenly click into place.
And perhaps this raises an important question for you, our listener. The sutta highlights proper attention and the voice of others as key for developing right view. So how might consciously applying those two, really listening, really paying wise attention, how might that reshape your own quest for knowledge and understanding day to day? What new aha moments might be waiting for you?
That's a wonderful thought to leave with. We hope this deep dive, tailored just for you, has offered some powerful insights to mull over. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.